Hello and welcome to another Scoutcast on www.fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. And my name is Mark.
My name is Jonty.
My name is Andy.
Casper in Fantasy Football Scout, our brand new editor, David Mundy. Welcome to the show, David. Right at the end, you turn up right at the end, crash right in. But welcome to the show. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to go through your season, of course, today. So hopefully that you'll still enjoy that, because that is,
I'll try.
To turn up right at the end and then to be grilled on your season is going to be quite tough. But it's not just David's season we're going to review, Joe, is it? We're going to go through all our seasons, and the community have come up with some great questions. A certain member of the community came up with a lot of questions that we can't possibly do because we'll be here till 3 a.m. But what are we going to tackle tonight, Jonty? Yeah,
so we're going to look back at a very goal-fueled final game week. Also have a look at our overall rank, see how we did this season. And then we've got a bit of a rough with the smooth. That last game week was so exciting and dramatic. We've got to get some of those rough with the smooths out there. And then we're going to really tuck in and look back into the last season. Best and worst moves, favourite, least favourite players, best Scoutcast moments too. And we're also going to reveal some of our early thoughts about next season and real tentative steps to compiling a game week 1 side for next season. Dare we try to attempt that?
I haven't thought about that. I've done some research for tonight, but I didn't get to that point.
Just come up with a few players. That's all.
I'm just going to have to come. It's going to have to be off the cuff for that one. Totally random, which probably will end up being my game week 1 selection anyway. I haven't done well for game week 1 for a few seasons. Okay, should we start with a review of game week 38 then? We're going to start. I said we're going to start at the top, but that's you, John, too. But I guess I'm going to have to now. 79 wasn't enough to beat Dr. Az. We'll come to him in a minute, but it was still a good score. All about a certain Andrew Robertson. Well played.
It was, yes. So I did say last week I highlighted my defence as an area where I was going to make a transfer. Morgan, I wanted to go. And I had some options. And I basically nailed it down to either Robertson at Liverpool or Van Arnholt. Van Arnholt, this is where I was using the Fantasy Football Scout members comparison tool there, and basically I discarded your friend Terence Trent D'Arby. Didn't want him at all. He just wasn't as good as Robertson or Van Arnholt. And then Van Arnholt, he's the goal guy, and Robertson, he was the assist potential guy. And what happens? They both get pretty much the same score, and they're both the goal and they're both the assist guy. So that was great. So I'm really pleased with that move. Captain Salah got 79 points. Arnautovic, who was brought in for game week 38 in mine, but brought him in a bit earlier. And obviously Kane points as well. And my overall finish was 1,525. So absolutely delighted with that. That's my third top 2,000 finish. And after this time last season, I had completely the opposite. I had an absolutely awful season. So I'm really pleased about that. And I absolutely love Andrew Robertson.
Yeah, I mean, that was a maverick pick. Once again, you managed to rile the Terence Trent D'Arby fan club. I'll be expecting more emails from them again. But yeah, I just didn't look at, I've got to say, I didn't look at him at all, Robertson. I was fixated on Van Dijk. I was thinking it'd be Alexander-Arnold because he could play midfield, or it'd be Van Dijk. And I don't know why because when I look back now, it was quite, I did always do a retrospective. Or if I make a mistake, I always look back and go, did I miss something? And I looked at the date. I'm like, yeah, I did miss something, didn't I? I didn't look closely enough. I was just like thinking about Brighton's set piece fragility, and that really made me just focus on Van Dijk. But Robertson has been so impressive over the last 6 or 7 game weeks, and in Europe as well.
The goal, I'm going to admit, was unexpected. Great, but it was the assist. That's what I thought. I thought I would get a clean sheet and assist. I thought he was pretty much 9 points and a bonus I was going to get out of him, and. But yeah, Van Arnholt was the other one. And when the Van Arnholt goal went in before Robertson's goal, I did think, missed a trick there, because that was a real 50-50 call, that. But yeah, I once again, I did that through the comparison tool with Van Dijk. And Robertson actually came out better than Van Dijk. And so yeah, use the tools on your own website.
No, I should have done that. I should have gone Van Arnholt, one of my favourite players. But I had Zaha already, and I was like, that's a bit much. Are they really going to run riot on the final day? And they did run riot on the final day. So, I regret that. Coming to you next, Dr. Az, 74 points. Congratulations on winning the Mods and Cons League. A very worthy winner. You and Jonty were setting the pace all season, and it was nip and tuck. But in the end, you sealed it there, 74 points. Tell us all.
Yeah, it was a nervy one, especially when Robertson scored. I was thinking, oh God, he's not going to make some kind of last minute comeback and get like a 30-point defender coming in to win him it. But yeah, ultimately ultimately I did enough. I'm really happy because it's been I felt like it's been my best season, and if I'd fallen short right at the last on the last game week, it would have been really gutting. But honestly, I cannot tell you how close I was to selling Vardy. I was going to take Vardy, and I wanted to keep Ali because I thought there's going to be goals in that Leicester game. So I thought I'll take out Vardy and Gross for Salah and Vokes, and I was pretty much all set to do it. And then I just had a last-minute change of heart and just went Ali straight to Salah for free. And yeah, I mean that saved me everything, because I think if I'd done that move, I think Johnson might have just beaten me. I wouldn't have finished in the top 1,000. So yeah, it all came down to that last decision. Just shows how fine the margins are. But that was good. I mean, I went for Kane captain over Salah, which I thought was a bit ballsy. And Kane got one more point than Salah, so that was a good decision. It wasn't worth the stress, just like it wasn't worth the stress of selling Salah 8 weeks ago. I worked it out. It got me 7 extra points selling Salah. I sold him for Ali, and then didn't bring him back for that Stoke game, so captain Kane. So yeah, about 7 extra points. Not really sure it was worth it. I mean, I think I still would have finished in the top 1,000 without it, and it was so stressful every week. It really was.
What was the cost to you, to your well-being, to your health? I mean, yeah, you never get that. You never understand, will you? But yeah, hopefully the course of the pills will run through and you'll be fine. Plenty more lies now.
I'm glad I stopped with it though, because
yeah,
if I brought him back in for that Stoke game, like a certain Hall of Fame #1 did when he brought him back, for a hit. That's you, Jay. After telling me that he wasn't bringing him back as well, so he really, I thought we were going to go into it together and holding hands, and he lied to me. So yeah, a bit disappointed with him there. But yeah, no, I'm glad I stuck with it. I think that's been the thing in my season. I've kind of stuck with my plans, and it's worked with the Salah, and it worked at the end because I went for Kane. I know it's an extra point, but those kind of decisions I've been making, not just going what everyone else is doing and saying to do, and kind of sticking with my gut a bit more. So it felt like quite a fitting end, and yeah, really happy.
No, well, very well played. Very good season for you. Very happy for you. And that's not because you beat Jonty, but it kind of helps, doesn't it? But yeah, 73 for me. I went to Liverpool defender, the wrong one. Went Van Dijk. I guess totally blinkered to that. But I did get Zaha in for William. That worked out. Kane captain, extra point. It was a good week. 77. I got a little green arrow. I hoped. I think I was 12,500. I hoped it might push me into the 10, but it wasn't to be. 11,458. Meh, the season was really. I mean, I probably didn't deserve to finish at 11.45. It didn't really feel like that, as I've said before. A lot of managers got stuck around game week 25, 26, and I was one of them. I think a lot of us felt that kind of just couldn't, wherever we were ranked in the top 50k and top 100, whatever. There was that time where it was really difficult to move up, and I got stuck in that until the chips came in. So I should be grateful for 11.458 because it looked like I was going to be about 30,000, which is not disastrous, but it's kind of difficult. It was just difficult to move. So yeah, I'm happy with that, I guess. But I've had better seasons, I've had worse. So it's one of those middling ones for me. So we'll see. Hopefully, I will look at what went right and wrong later in the Scoutcast. Andy, 62 for you. Brought in Zaha as well. Romero came in, clean sheet. Can't complain about that. And you went Kane captain as well. So it's pretty much like for like. What did you miss out on?
Yeah, I made the right decisions this week. I just didn't have any players that played in defence. So Long and Loughton, they both got their clean sheets wiped out by Wilson and King. And then I had Alonso and Vertonghen on the bench. Vertonghen in particular was a bit annoying, getting feeling his calf, whatever it was, in the warm-up. So yeah, they didn't play. Morgan got 0. I still got Morgan. I hoped that I wouldn't have to play him this week, and that kind of went down the pan. So yeah, I captained Kane, which was nice, but obviously just a point. In the game where they scored 5 goals, I know he got 2 of them, but at least nick an assist somewhere there. And yeah, Romero and Zaha was nice. But yeah, ultimately I got a red arrow this week, finished just outside 20k in the end, so it was 21,436. So a little bit disappointed by that. Just a few decisions in the last few weeks, especially didn't go quite to plan. Yeah,
a lot of managers had a bad last 3 or 4 game weeks. I think we hit off the back of the free hit on the 35, and then a lot of managers did struggle from that point. I think because of the wild card hangover, and a lot of us went Mahrez and Vardy out, and I did. And had I kept them, yeah, exactly. They really did hurt us over this period. Coming to you next, David, for your Scoutcast debut, 58. Sorry to come to you last on the. You choose the very game week you come last of all of us. But tell us about your game week and your season as a whole.
Well, I mean, you've mentioned it perfectly there. I was one of those managers who just had a really dreadful last 3 or 4 weeks of the campaign, and I think you're right. It just came from the hangover from the wild card. I mean, the kind of wild card template team that a lot of people were looking at for, I think, the double game week in 34, which did do quite well. I picked players that were playing twice in both game weeks, so that to minimise transfers. And then that team just didn't do very well in 37. I think I had 50 something points, and I was ranked 65k after game week 35, but then 36, 37, and 38. I dropped I think 120,000 places in just really abject weeks where I had Salah and Kane, but their ownership was so high that when they're delivering, none of my differentials really came in. So on the final weekend of the season, I kind of given up on my aims of trying to stay in the top 100k. The only thing I had left to kind of seal was I had a mini league with some of the guys I play football with, and I'd been miles clear of it for ages. And then one of the guys just in the last 3 weeks, conversely to me, he had incredible 3 weeks, and basically coming into the last game week, 19 points behind me, I think. And it sort of transpired that I actually hosted him for Sunday lunch. So, I offered him hospitality, etc.
No, this is terrible.
Yeah, we followed the games together. And of course, he had Andrew Robertson, and he also had Patrick Van Aanholt. And over Sunday lunch, and it's like, there's your nice lunch. My wife's prepared for you. So, what are you going to give me in return? And he just, it was horrible.
So, hold on. You lost your mini league to him and you cooked him dinner?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
He must have felt like the king.
Jonty, when are you going to go around to cook us dinner? That's what I want to know.
Anytime. Yeah. My pasta bake is ready to go. Ready to travel up north.
Well, that's so. Did he accept it graciously then?
Yeah,
and the victory.
He was all right. It was more just the embarrassment of kind of losing a mini league title you thought was in the bag, at your own house in front of your mates, really. But like I said, I mean, the season had just kind of imploded in on itself, so it kind of just felt natural, really. I mean, the transfers I actually made, I was quite happy with. So, like I said, I was trying to close it out. I knew he'd taken an 8-point hit because basically he told me. He was quite brazen about what his plans were.
He was so cocky, yeah.
So I thought, I'm comfortable taking a -4. I needed to get Morgan out. Rather, not necessarily out, but just I did not want to play Morgan in a game where Spurs.
We're all with you on that one.
Yeah, you totally get that. So I, in order to bench him, I sold Smalling because obviously we knew he wasn't going to play, and pulled in Tompkins, who got me a clean sheet, but obviously got booked. The reason I brought in Tompkins was to cover Van Aanholt, and obviously that didn't end well.
You can't cover Van Aanholt.
No, exactly. But I just
covering him.
Well, no, but I just thought for the clean sheet, yeah. I thought maybe I get lucky with a goal from a set piece. And then the other transfer I made, I got Glenn Murray out because again, one of those wildcard players that just completely disappointed, and I swapped him for Rashford. And actually, I was really happy with that. I mean, a nice little differential on the final day of the season, got 8 points. So I mean, that game week in isolation, if you take the mini league out of the equation, I mean, I think I made the right decisions. It's very rare for me to take a -4, and both of my players actually do what I wanted them to do. So I guess I can't complain too much about that particular decision.
Did you fall into the Leicester trap? Because I mean, the Leicester were horrible to us, weren't they? Absolutely dreadful. Because they just didn't perform until the point where we were about to get rid, and then they exploded, and it was. And then Morgan to add, I mean, I had Maguire as well. I mean, I had 3 of them. I mean, it's just like, at least Maguire didn't score, but Mahrez and Vardy were cool, weren't they?
I had Mahrez, I mean, there was a state when I was doing my wildcard, I felt like both Mahrez and Vardy might be a bit of overkill. I'd done an article a couple of months ago where I kind of compared the two of them when Leicester have really nice fixtures, and I came to the conclusion, I felt very enlightened, where I discovered, look, Vardy doesn't score many goals when they play good teams because they tend to sit deep, and he tends to score more goals against the teams that allow a bit of space, like the big teams. I thought, well, I don't want Vardy for a good run, so I didn't have him. I thought, well, I'll go with Mahrez then. And then, of course, as you say, just did nothing for me whilst Vardy was tearing it up. I had other issues I needed to solve, so I could never really get Vardy in. And then, I sold Mahrez the week before he exploded, and of course the problem was I could have sold him for 36 to get Sterling in, and I nearly did, but I thought, well, I needed 2 free transfers for 37, and of
that's
course,
exactly what I did.
And so then Sterling got 3 assists, I think it was. Mahrez did nothing again, so I thought, well, that is your last chance, Mahrez.
I know it was terrible to us.
I can't help but think of Barrett.
I know,
exactly.
I know. Thing is, had Barra, just to explain, had Mahrez and he sold him for the final day for Salah. Had he not sold him, he would have been level at the top. But he would have still lost on transfers made. Right. I worked that out for him. I did email him on the day and said, commiserations, and by the way, don't beat yourself up about Mahrez because you would have lost anyone.
It would have been worse losing it that way.
It would have been worse. I think it would. It would. So, yeah. But he had Ali. He could have gone Ali and he kept Ali and he got rid of Mahrez, which makes perfect sense. Yeah.
That's the thing. So many decisions that we've made across the season, they make sense. I feel like I played my chips in the right place and I kind of played them by the book, if you can say that. Wild carded in 32, played my bench boost with 34, free hit 35, triple captain 37. That was on Sterling. So, I know a lot of people did the same. And I thought, well, maybe I should have gone Gabriel Jesus, but that wouldn't have brought anything in either. And even though he triple captain Kane, it didn't really bring them very much. So that's the thing. There's so many decisions that a lot of people have made this year that make sense on paper. Yeah. But of course, FPL
it's just about getting more right than you get wrong. And
yeah, exactly.
Normally I sort of even out about 50-50, but luckily this year I just managed to get more right than wrong. But yeah, you look. I was looking back at my transfers made and some of the decisions I made, and they turned out well. And then I looked at other ones and thought, oh, God, and actually I could have done even better if I hadn't done. I made a goalkeeper change of Pickford to Pope, and that cost me 23 points. Over like 4 weeks.
Yeah, I didn't even look at that one. I did that as well. I've had that exercise tonight, and I had to just go and walk down the garden and just calm down. We'll talk about that later on when we get onto our transfers. Let's do rough or the smooth, Jonty, shall we?
Yeah, so quite a few smooths. I like this one. Jason Jones didn't just get Van Aanholt, he captained him.
Oh, you haven't? No.
Yeah, he's good. I like Jason Jones. Talk to him a bit on social media. He does things like that. Trigger Lips, old friend of the site.
Yeah, the good old Trigger Lips is back.
Yeah. So he had Edison, Lingard, Smalling, and Vertonghen no shows. And he got an incredible 29 points off his bench as a result.
Big Newcastle presence.
Fabianski 9 points, Perez 13, Lascelles for clean sheet, and Bernie's Long. He didn't score much, but added to the party atmosphere there down in New Zealand for Trigger Lips. Jeff Holt, he brought Solanke in just as a bench enabler, really, to go in alongside Robertson and Salah. And David Silva's absence meant he came into the full squad. So that's a lovely bit of bench work there. Just a couple of roughs, really. Just not really about players. It's just more about that horror that David mentioned about losing a mini league at the death. Jamosh, he lost a 35-point mini league lead because the second place person had Perez and a double Newcastle defence against Chelsea. So that's annoying. And Mr. Funny Names, he lost a 41-point lead just by 1 point, single point, 41 points. If I had a 41-point lead, say over Az, or if Az had that over me, you just feel really confident. But just shows you. Anything can happen in that game.
Yeah, we're talking of that. We've got to congratulate Yusuf Sheikh for winning FPL, of course. And he did outscore Barat on the final day by 41 points. And it was an incredible final day for Yusuf. 93 points. He had heroes all over the pitch. He had Zaha and Arnautovic in midfield. He had Fabianski at the back, and Rashford as a differential up front. It was a fantastic one-off kind of game week. He was the highest
captain as well.
Yeah, triple captain on Saturday. He snuck that in. He was the only one in the top 25 managers who had a chip, maybe more than that, but he was certainly one of the top 25 managers who had a chip left. Deliberately left it for Salah for the final day. So bravely didn't play it on Jesus and Kane. That came through for him, and he got it on the final day. But that made 11 points on most managers because a lot of managers in the top 10 captained him. But it was all the other players that came in. Extraordinary game week, and also obviously we've got to say commiserations to Barrett. We mentioned him already, who was top since game week 21, and it happened last season when Uwe was top from really early on, and then Ben took him on that final stretch, and it happened again this year. It can be really cruel on the final day. And just a word as well about Paul G, who were interviewing Yusuf and Paul this week. Paul G, obviously an FFS member, we mentioned him. Even the goals imminent table, Jonty, wasn't enough for him on the final day, but he was close. He was 16 minutes from winning it because he had two Burnley defenders, and then Josh King, hero of last season, wrecked it for him with that goal for Bournemouth, and it all swung round. It was one of the most dramatic. At one point, there was 1 point between the top 4 managers with about 15, 20 minutes to go. And I looked at it and I just didn't see where the winner was coming from. It was an incredible final day. And added to that, the FBL Cup went to goals scored. It was 78 all. It was, you couldn't have scripted it. It was Roy the Rovers stuff on the final day. And there were some big scores. There was some heartache and mini leagues lost, as we've said. Okay, let's get on to the community questions, John T.
So yeah, this is from Midland Saint 73. What were your best and worst decisions this season? So it may have been hundreds, it may have been 1 or 2, but I think for the sake of time, we'll just maybe do 1 or 2 each, really. So
mine's easy, so I'll do mine last. Let's go to you first, Andy. What do you reckon? Best and worst decision?
Yeah, really quick worst straight away. It was I probably shouldn't have mocked Gross as much as I did at the start of the season, thinking he'll never keep it up, because not only did he keep it up, I also sold him for Lingard for a hit at the end, and then he scored twice, knocking out my Spurs clean sheet. That wasn't good, but probably the worst decision I made. I don't think I made too many really bad ones, but I took out Lukaku in game week 5. Logic when he was scoring every week. Logic was that I could get rid of him and Gabbiadini and bring in Jesus and Firmino, which just seemed like a better combo for the money. But Lukaku went on to score 39 points over the next 7 game weeks. That was 5.5 average. And although Firmino went on to have a great season, that wasn't the time when he was scoring regular amount of points. And Jesus was kind of in the side mostly, but not every game because of Aguero. So yeah, that was a pretty poor decision back then. I remember tracking it on Twitter, and every game Lukaku would just score, get an assist every week after that for, like I said, 7 weeks. And then best decision, one I kind of fell into. I had Mkhitaryan from the start, which was a great decision. I didn't hold on for him too long, which is surprising because he was a Man United player at the time. But I got in Sterling, who was only 7.9 million, which now when I think about that is crazy how good a season he had. And he went on to outscore Sané and Silva that week. I think it was game week 8 or something like that. Sané then went on that little mini run. I don't know if you remember, he got like double-figure hauls for like 3 or 4 weeks in a row. But then Sterling just smashed it for the whole season. So getting rid of Mkhitaryan at the right time and getting Sterling at the right time was probably one of my best decisions. And then really quick, I took out Christensen when he didn't play for Alonso just because I had the right amount of money. Yeah, and then I bought Firmino in the same week, and that is when Firmino went on a really good run. So that was probably best decision too. No,
absolutely. I mean, it's some good stuff there. You mentioned Christensen. I forgot about him.
He's been a nightmare, this season.
Coming to you next, as that's maybe feel slightly nauseous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with my start. I mean, I picked Gross at the beginning, and I went with the wing backs, and I had a fairly unspectacular start, but I stuck with it. And I think in previous seasons, I might have taken Gross out. I think if he hadn't been a Brighton player, I probably would have done. Didn't do anything for 3 weeks. And the wing backs weren't really performing. And I looked at the shape of my team and I thought, I've got a bit heavy in defence and stuff. And then game week 4 happened, and it was one of the best. It's the most memorable game week I've ever had playing FBL, because Gross got that 18 points against West Brom, and he was 0.0% ownership or something ridiculous. I took all my wing backs came in, so Kolasinac and Ben Davies both got double digits. Kane, got 2 goals, I think, and my captain's got, it was just one of those weeks where just every single one of your players just did something well, and I think that really gave me the confidence, I think, for the rest of the season to kind of really stick with what I wanted to do and things. And then that led me on to game week 9. I had a bit of a rough game week, the one before, and I wildcarded. And I remember I came on here and you all kind of said, maybe you shouldn't have done that. Like, you've kind of just reacted to a bad game week. Actually, I switched out from the wing backs, because it was when I think Rose was coming back and Kolasinac was being dropped, and suddenly Mendy got injured, so suddenly there wasn't the systems had changed in the teams. So I went 3 heavy strikers up front, Morata, Aguero, and Kane, and they just kept scoring every week. And I got the captains right, and I just went on a really good run for about 5 or 6 weeks. So I think that period right at the start of the season really kind of set the tone my season. But yeah, I mean, Gross just delivered throughout the season for me. So he's definitely my number 1 pick. Him and Pope they were my two best decisions, I think, this year.
But you didn't stick with Pope. You got Pickford in like me over that time. I remember.
I know, and then I got rid of Pope. You know, it was just because Heaton was back, and Everton had that game in the blank, and you know, it seemed like a good move. I did it for a hit, so it was just 20.
I tell you what, since Andy's spoken and you've spoken, you reminded me of two other bad decisions, and it seems like I've made all the decisions that you're.
I forgot the Pickford one. I did exactly the same.
Say, this is shocking. I'm going to be talking for 45 minutes myself at this rate. Okay, coming to you next, David. Your best and your worst decisions this season.
Well, I mean, I think some of my better decisions actually were pre-season. So I actually started game week 1 really well. I think I had 86 points, and I did a lot of research into West Brom defenders, as we often do, because West Brom defenders generally great on FPL. May they rest in peace from an FPL perspective for now.
Yeah, what we'll do now.
Yeah, but I spent a lot of time going through their pre-season friendlies because I saw that Higazi was in there 4-5, and I thought that's a great price for a West Brom defender. And analysed how many times he was playing, and it took ages because Premier League teams, when they're playing all their little teams that you've never heard of around their local area, the detailed team sheets, there aren't very many. And in the end, I found that he was playing about 80% of them, so I thought, well, go on then, I'll stick him in. Of course, he got me a goal in game week 1, and then I had Ben Davis for game week 1 as well. But then it all started to kind of go downhill a bit from there. I think I actually benched Higazi for game week 2 because I wasn't that confident that they were going to keep a clean sheet, and then of course they did. But I think in terms of the absolute worst, I think I've got 2 that kind of stick out. By the time we got to game week 10, I think I already played my wild card, and I wasn't in a position where I wanted to be. So I thought, well, let's try something a bit risky. So I actually captained Richarlison in game week 10. I know, but the thing is, I look back and think,
we talked about it. I did it as well.
Oh, there we go. I'm not alone. Oh, thank goodness. I felt so stupid all this time. I mean, at the time it made sense, as you probably remember. I mean, he was top.
Flying, yeah.
He was top for shots on goal among midfield. So he had more shots on goal than Salah at the time. And he was playing Stoke. They conceded more goals than anyone. So, I thought if you're going for a differential captain, let's go for it. And of course,
we got away with it because Salah missed a penalty.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, we were just all right because Salah was my vice. So I thought, well, I've only really lost 2 points. But that was a moment when I realised that Richarlison needed to get out of my team. But it took me way longer to get him out than it should have done. I had a few other issues I needed to solve. And I think he didn't even come out until, I don't know, maybe January, something like that, which was just, I mean, that was a poor decision keeping him around because I lost a lot of value on him. And of course, every game we watch on Match of the Day, Richarlison's got, he's had a shot. Was it on target? No, of course it wasn't. He can't hit a barn door. So that was frustrating. But I mean, out of that one and this one, I don't know which one is worse. So on New Year's Eve, I was one of those people that sold Salah because the reports were suggesting that he was going to be out for a while. So I wanted to keep Hazard in for a couple of the fixtures coming up, and it was basically a choice between the two. And I decided to keep Hazard, which worked out well, I think, initially because he got that goal against Arsenal, the one for that penalty that caused a lot of outspokenness from Hector Bellerin, shall we say? And but then I didn't have him in my team when he helped destroy Man City, and that's when everyone else captained him around me. So I mean, those 2 decisions they were bad. In the end, it cost me something like 0.6 million to get him back because obviously I needed to get him back. I mean, I'd had him since game week 1, so I mean, I'd shown faith in him, but just that injury, I kind of, New Year's Eve. And the funny thing is, lots of people said that they made drunk transfers on New Year's Eve. I didn't go out. I was in front of my computer at 23:57.
Perfectly
spreadsheets. Completely sober. I'm like, Salah out. Definitely a good idea. In terms of best decisions, I mean, there was a few that have been particular. I mean, I think the best one for me though really was I never had Firmino during his prime, and because I was kind of wanted to make up some ground with people that did have him, I bought in Aguero over the sort of January, February time, and I captained him for his hat-trick against Newcastle. And actually, on the day that he scored 4 goals was when my wife was giving birth to my second daughter. So that kind of made that day even better.
2 big events then on that day. Perfect.
I think, perhaps maybe the bad decision for me, there was my phone was in the corner. I could hear the goal alerts going off, but obviously I was kind of a bit busy. So I knew that there were some goals I needed to know about, and I didn't get to find out about them until, way after all the important stuff had happened. So, Aguero for me, because at the time he was quite a differential at that sort of time. So getting those goals did make up some ground. So I know a lot of other people are quite happy to bring in Aguero because pedigree's there, it paid off. I mean, hat-trick, 4 goals in a couple of weeks. That worked out well. So
Aguero's been a funny player for us though this season. He's never been someone just never been there to rely upon, has he? And,
No.
and I didn't. I mean, again, you reminded me of another really bad decision. It just seems like my whole season now is a string of bad decisions when I come to think about it. I'll come to you next, John T, because you'll probably give me another one that I've probably forgotten.
Well, I'll go with some bests first, so hopefully that might prompt. Actually, this will remind you. So sorry, there's two here. One, I delayed my wild card. I didn't use it in game week 4.
I wasn't even. To be honest, I've made much worse decisions than that. But yeah, go on.
And I timed it for when everyone was going back on Man City. Everyone decided, okay, no, they are actually amazing. And so I tripled up on Man City attack for that wild card, and that just kept me going.
7-2 was it against Stoke? Wasn't it?
That was huge. Yeah, it was, and so that was good. The other one was the surprise news that Morata was injured late on in the game week, ahead of game week 17. So that prompted me to get Firmino in. I would not have got Firmino in if Morata was going to play, because I think he had quite a good fixture. Yeah. And so over the next 4 game weeks, Firmino got me 38 points. Morata got 7. So there was a 31-point swing, and because what I did is I looked back on my game weeks, and I was thinking, what's the biggest kind of jump there? And I saw this jump here, 14k to 3k, and I looked back, what was the decision there? And it was that. It's just that one decision, really. And so I've been around there ever since, kind of sinking the place up around that place in the rankings there. Worst decision. So I was looking back on my worst run, game week 29 to 33. I did wildcard within that, but it's not actually the wildcards. Just for those watching in black and white and colour, Granville has just joined the ScoutCast.
Just in time to talk about bad decisions. So that's perfect. I'll just come to the quick conclusion of this worst decision. So I was looking back in game week 29 to 33. What was the reason? I had just one game week rank under 1 million. I mean, they were awful, and the main reason, it wasn't chip strategy, and it wasn't things around the blanks and the doubles. I think I played that fine. It was some of the players I get in, and I didn't follow the golden rule. Only pick nailed on players. So who did I get in? I got Ben Davis. Never get a Spurs fullback in. He rotates the whatever out of them. Jesus.
Yeah. Nias. Yeah, speaking of rotating, Jesus. Nias I got in. Brilliant. Big Sam. Nias. He's our big centre forward.
Oh, that was a bad decision.
That was a lie. Sam Allardyce, I hope you get sacked this week. Absolutely appalling decision. Willian, I'll get him in. No, I shouldn't have got him in. Of course not. Son, of course I shouldn't have got him in. Van La Parra for Huddersfield. Even he was rotated.
You did have a crazy half hour around here, didn't you?
So basically, the lesson to be learned from that, because I think we should all get lessons to be learned out of these mistakes, and that is only go for nailed-on players. So who should I have been getting in? I should have been getting Talisman. I should have been getting Arnautovic, Zaha, Gross, Mahrez. I did get in, but I got rid of him. He proved his worth, played every game, and eventually came good. And that's the big lesson I've learned from that. So I feel pleased I've learned a lesson, but it's awful reeling off those names and of all these awful players I got in who just weren't playing.
I can officially say I told you so about William.
Yes, you were right about
William. Yeah, fair enough.
But
I'm still not having that.
I think out of all of them, it's Nias that really gets my gears.
The thing about Nias is like we kind of flirted with Calvert-Lewin and he looked good, and then people jumped on him, and then Nias came in. It was like, oh no, Calvert-Lewin's wrong. We should have got Nias. Then he got him out as well.
I got rid of Nias. I got rid of Calvert-Lewin for Nias, and Calvert-Lewin was used as an impact sub. Kept assisting like spurious penalties.
Yep.
Oh. Go away, Sam Allardyce. But as we get rid of Sam Allardyce, we welcome Granville.
Yeah, Granville's in, looking blushed with the sun.
Sorry, I was waylaid.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll just come to you then. I don't know if you're prepared. I mean, what are the chances?
Not really.
Yeah, no, you do surprise me. But see if you can remember your best and worst decision of the season, if you can. Let's see how you get on with that.
Oh gosh, I think my best one must have been Son, Lingard, players that I got in on my wild card.
Yeah.
There was a few good midfielders. Yeah, but I created the template.
Exactly.
Yeah,
no, you were there weeks earlier.
I was at least 2 weeks ahead of the template. So, that was a success. Halfway through the season, that was pretty good. But as I said last week, my season just ended up just kind of just tailing off. The Have you spoken about this week yet?
Yeah, we've already covered that.
Okay.
You missed that one. So.
Well, I'll just quickly say about this week is that I knew that I wanted this to take risks because I don't see the difference between finishing 30,000 and 50,000. I don't see, and I thought, well, the players I got in are good enough to score this week. In the end, it was Kane and Salah again who returned points, and I didn't have them this week. But I did have quite a few. I had Mahrez, who came good eventually after quite a few weeks of blanking. The last 2 weeks he came good. Arnautovic, which was my transfer. But I was stuck with players like Morgan and Otamendi, who wasn't nailed on. Well, he was rested, wasn't he, and rotated a couple of times over the last few weeks. Well, I think overall, the game week 37 really messed up my season because it didn't return the points that we expected it to return. And by focusing on that double game week, it just cost me, it cost me Salah for a start. It probably wasn't a great move. Eriksen had 90 more minutes, so I felt that it'd be worth it to get him in. But Eriksen didn't do anything for the last 3 weeks, so that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, a lot of us ended the season. The last couple of game weeks was very poor. David was saying the same as well. It was quite a common thing because game week 37 was tough, particularly if you had a lot of Leicester players in, then ended up selling them. But yeah, for me, hands down Morata, the worst decision I made this season, because I looked at it again tonight, and it doesn't get any better when you look back at it. I got in game week 14. Yeah. And then kept him till game week 19 and got 11 points from him in that run in those 5 game weeks. And then a game week later in game week 21, I got him back, captained him in game week 21, and he got 2 points. And then he got the injury, but I'd already made my transfer, which John T, I'm sure will remind me about. But he had a good fixture. But he got, I think it was, that's it. I captained him before. And then he had a good fixture, but then he got booked in the EFL Cup in midweek, which meant he missed the following game week, and then he played 2 more matches and got 3 points in those. And so from game week 14 to 24, I more or less had Morata instead of Firmino. And Firmino was a player I played my wild card in game week 3 or 4, which was apparently the wrong time to play it, but I think I just got the wrong players really. But Firmino I backed then. That was the whole point of playing the wild card early, because I liked what Firmino was doing early on. Had I got Firmino rather than Mata over game weeks 14 to 24, I'd have been 44 points better off. Awful decision to stick by Morata. And we're going to come later to the most disappointing player, biggest villain, whatever. It's Morata. I can't look beyond Morata. He was shocking for me. I don't know why. I said at the start of the season I didn't rate him, and I still got him in for these 2 periods.
Mark seems to have gone. Yeah,
Mark has gone.
I think what you're saying about Morata is that I thought he was quite unlucky with Morata as well, because I think that in those few games he had plenty of chances. He fluffed them. I don't know whether that's bad luck. Is just banking on.
He was injured though, wasn't he? I think he pretty much got confirmed out, and then was that week?
Yeah, no, I think also the injury. Ever since really, he's been in and out the side, and I think that injury has affected him. I think it's a genuine injury because he started off on fire. Remember, he started off in the Burnley game, which Chelsea lost, but he came on and was just transformed Chelsea, and everyone was thinking, "Wow, Diego Costa, this guy is really good," but it just wasn't happening. So, in the absence of Mark, hopefully he'll return. He's probably just overcome with grief over those Morata memories. So we'll just move on to the next one, really, which is best players and biggest disappointment. And this can be about any players, really. It doesn't necessarily have to have a personal experience, just those that we've maybe looked at and thought, no, I don't fancy them. So Greg Cool and Isan Ismail ask, who's been your favourite players this season and biggest disappointments? Shiva and Shah just brings it a bit more personal. What's the biggest transfer you regret making, and also favourite move? D Young, I said I would mention him. He says he's put forward Richarlison as his biggest disappointment, so I'll just put that out there. I did promise D Young I would say that. Wilson NG, who has been this year's biggest surprise as well. I quite like that one as well. So let's go to you first, David, as the new guest on the show today. So yeah, best player and biggest disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's easy to say Salah, but so I mean, I guess I'm not going to say Salah for best player. I think, I mean, it sort of comes back to some of the decisions that I made. Like, I mean, I really enjoyed having Shaqiri in my team for a couple of weeks because he was kind of like instant gratification. You know, I brought him in and I think he scored 3 goals in his first 3. I enjoy it when it's that simple. You know, life is quite easy when you look at a guy's stats, you see he's having a lot of shots, you get him in and he scores you three games in a row. So I mean, it didn't last long, but you know, he did his job when it was needed. In terms of disappointment, yeah, you mentioned Richarlison, yeah, massively so. Yeah, we were talking about his shots on goal earlier. I mean, it was phenomenal, but of course, when he filtered it by on target, it made a big difference. And yeah, I just held on to him for too long, just kind of hoping, you know, in that kind of perhaps foolishly that, you know, if you don't shoot, you don't score. So maybe if he keeps on shooting, he'll eventually score. But of course, yeah, he just couldn't get any shots on target. And Morata's been mentioned as well. I mean, yeah, I had him around the same sort of time that Mark did as well. There was that period where Chelsea just had a really nice set of fixtures between, I think it was something like game week sort of 14 and maybe 25, something like that. You know, nice long run of no games against the top 6. Yeah, so I got him in. I think it was actually on my wild card, and yeah, just completely disappointed because he just didn't back up any of the statistics that he'd been posting prior to that. Obviously, the injury was made a big impact on that as well. So yeah, they're probably, you know, for me the big, because again they were just 2 players I had too much faith in for too long. I think that for me that's what a disappointment is in FPL, is a player that you give a bit of faith to, and they just don't repay it. So yeah, they're the ones for me, I think.
No, some good ones there, and I think that's going to ring a lot of bells. A lot of people, especially the Richarlison one, public enemy number 1. Yeah. So going to the end of the line here, we've got Andy here. So what about you?
So I'm going to stick up for Richarlison. I think, I think people have been a little harsh. So he started off posting really good stats. We thought he was going to do well. From game week 6 to 13, which is like 7 or 8 game weeks, he scored 49 points and averaged 6 points per game. For a 6 to 6.5 million midfielder, I mean, that's perfectly fine. It's not very often that a player at that price does it for the whole season. So you get him in when you can. And like you say, it's probably more that we kept on hold of him too long. So I'm going to say De Jong, you can't have that as a disappointment. I think he did okay. For me, like, without going into it too much, I think players, big hitters that don't perform are always disappointing. So Sanchez and Hazard. Sanchez, for me, actually, one of the worst moments was when he missed that open goal against Newcastle when I had him in my team. And then best players, I've written down 4 players. I only actually own 2 of them. I think David Silva, just for all the personal stuff that he went through, and every time he played, he was just on it. Arguably the best player City had this year, an average 5.8 points per game when he played. So he actually beat City mids when he played, apart from Sterling, every single one of them. And then Jones and Robertson, also, they averaged 5 points a game when they played. That's the same as Alonso. And okay, Phil Jones was in and out of the team, but at the start of the season, he was a nice differential over De Gea because he was getting a lot of bonus. And Robertson, once he got his place, it was kind of his for most of the season. I think Robertson's, I know you guys have already mentioned him having this year. I think he's definitely one to watch next year, especially if there's a chance that maybe he gets priced 0.5 lower than Van Dijk. That's probably wishful thinking, but yeah, I think those 2 scoring the same as Alonso, especially Robertson. Once he was kind of in for the rest of the season. That's a really good average for a defender. And then the last one I'll put in, I did own for a couple of weeks, but not for the most important part, was Arnautovic. So it really inconsistent minutes at the start of the season, kind of sporadic. I can't remember if he was injured or not, but he was kind of in and out of the team. But once he was in, he was super consistent, and we've seen all the damage he did at the end of the season. So converted striker, I was really impressed with him.
And what about you, Az? I think I know who your favourite player is.
Yeah,
your favourite, your biggest disappointment.
Man. Oh, God.
Jesse Lingard, right?
Oh, yeah. I gave Lingard because he came off my bench when he scored against Chelsea and got 6 points, and then I sold him. So we've made our peace, me and Lingard, and I think he's going to do well at the World Cup as well. We're all right. It's Willian who I just despise, but I never had him, so he can't be one of my disappointments. I think what's interesting is like how bad the budget strikers were this year, and how good the kind of budget midfielders were. So you had Gross, Richarlison, Arnautovic. You had quite a few options in midfield. Shaqiri, came good. But then up front, I mean, I always try and find a gem of a budget striker, and I started this season with Chicharito, and I really thought he was gonna get 10 goals or something this year, and he couldn't even keep a spot in the team. Joselu I had, who I don't know if I could put him down as a disappointment, but Rodriguez, I had Jay Rodriguez. He was a big pre-season favourite of Fantasy Scout. None of them really got going, and I think the worst of all of them, my biggest disappointment has to be Callum Wilson, because I bought him in after that Chelsea game when he went absolutely mad. He had a really good run of fixtures, and he did nothing. Everyone was thinking, oh, he's going to get dropped, and he was in the starting lineup, and you thought, oh, this is it. He's finally going to deliver. He's playing like Stoke at home. And then I think he gave penalties up to Stanislas, and we all thought he was going to take penalties, and he was just awful. And then you think about Bournemouth strikers in general, Defoe and King and Wilson. I mean, one of those strikers should have emerged as a top target for us, and they just didn't. So I think budget strikers for me were the biggest disappointment this year. And that's why I ended up going with 3 heavy hitters up top.
And Granville, what about you?
I think I was just thinking about the budget strikers. The only striker, it was a mid-price one. That was Vardy. He's the only one who really performed. But I do remember with Wilson, I had him on my bench for that game when he scored 3. He scored, was it 2 against Chelsea? Or at least it was a goal of assist. It was a good return, whatever. And that's the only time. I had him for about 5 or 6 weeks, and that's the only time he actually did anything, when I had him on the bench. Calvert-Lewin, actually, I had him for. I think I got 2 goals out of him, so I was sort of quite happy with him. But then he started being rotated, and then rang the transfer window. Everton bought Tozen, and he went straight in, and then he became a player you couldn't select. And I was the same. I was looking. I went with 3. I went with Aguero. Remember when I went with Aguero and Jesus? Obviously people were laughing at me. It did work a little bit. I mean, at times, there were times when I did get a goal out of the both of them in the one game. But I think I was sitting on the fence a little bit, and I didn't want to go. I was trying to avoid Kane. If you remember, I avoided him up until December. Because I think I was sort of justified in doing that, because then I got him in, and he started scoring goals.
I don't know if you mentioned your Kane wariness in August in your best decision, but that by far was the decision of the season. Doesn't matter where you end up by the end of it, because that was a genuine curse.
I know, I know, and I just thought there is something in it, because he must start off the season after pre-season just not ready, just not much fit, and then surely that's been proven now. But I mean, come game week 1, he'll be the first player in Mark's team, and he'll be complaining.
World Cup this year, though.
Spurs are going to be playing away every game, aren't they?
Yeah, but nevertheless, I think the Kane decision was right, but I never cashed in, because I didn't have a player to replace him who was consistent enough. I think it was difficult. It was difficult finding any strikers right at the beginning of the season, to be honest. Lukaku did score a few goals in the first few games, but there were only single goals. He never really properly caught fire where you thought, well, I'm going to stick the captaincy on him.
What about a favourite player though? I mean,
well, it has to be Son, because when you consider, I mean, now Son is a fixture in the team, but when you consider at the beginning of the season, he was still out the team. He was still on the bench and not first choice. And what he did, he played his way into that team, and Pochettino now starts him in the important games. He has tailed off a little bit towards the end of the season.
Well, I think you hit it there. They stopped having important games, and that's when I got him in. So I got him in for all the kind of unimportant games. Really, they pretty much had top 4 secure. But I mean,
they did. I mean, I think actually the player. I'm just looking now to see who I got him in for. I got him in for Coutinho, who was dreadfully disappointing for me. I mean, I think he scored. He did score for me. I had him for a few weeks, but again, he was then rotated for some reason. It might have been Europe, I can't remember. But he ended up with a disappointment, and obviously then he was on his way.
You're unlucky with that because he did really well for me, Coutinho. I remember I bought him in quite early to put him alongside Salah, and it worked out quite well. So
I think
could be unlucky with that.
just before we come to Mark for his disappointments and favourite players, I'll just quickly run through some of mine. Basically, mine's all of Chelsea and Manchester United, so that's a nice one there. Absolutely loads of players there. Because I had a look at the top 10 scorers. There's 2 from Liverpool, Salah and Firmino. 3 from City, Sterling, KDB and Sané. 3 from Spurs, Son, Granville's mate, Kane and Eriksen. 2 from Leicester, Vardy and Mahrez. No Chelsea, no Manchester United. So that's what there's a huge disappointment because of the prices you're talking about there. So Lukaku, huge price. Hazard, huge price. And then you're looking at players like Alonso, and even Azpilicueta didn't muscle his way into that one there. So in terms of kind of biggest surprises, I'm really surprised that Mahrez and Vardy are still knocking around in that elite group there. I'm not really surprised by any of those other names, but I am surprised that Vardy is still competing with the best there. And as it proved, he's a player I didn't really get much this season. And so a bit of a regret there. I think people who did and stuck with him, a very wise move. My favourite players are the cheaper, smaller players who get surprise hauls and when they're differentials, and then everyone gets them back because you can have a nice smug glow about you there. So special mentions there to Fabianski for his 9 points against Man City, his 8 points against Liverpool, and his 11 against Tottenham, and also his 9 points at the end. Moy got me 10 points immediately. He didn't do much else, but he got me that 10 points in game week 2. Milivojevic, my favourite, unpronounceable Crystal Palace midfielder, multiple double-digit hauls. Actually got rid of him for some more of his big hauls. Lots of people kept him. I think he'll be among people's favourites. And, of course, Robertson now has a special dear place in my heart. And I absolutely adore the man. 18 points last game week. And, yep, I'm having him next season. Definitely. No matter how much he is, I say now. Mark, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at players that, outside of my own team, I think Milivojevic was just a massive surprise, wasn't it, to do what he did. I mean, you got a lot of his points, but also missed some. I mean, just unexpected hauls, wasn't it? Like to get
he had so many.
8 penalties, yeah, it's incredible. 10 penalties for Palace all season, and he took 8 of them. Great performance. I mean, for me, the player that surprised me most and my probably best player is Sterling. I just didn't expect to get what we got from him all year. I kind of expected Salah to be up there because I had him from the start. Obviously, didn't expect him to get as many goals as he did, but I did expect Salah to be in the top 3 or 4 players this season. I didn't put Sterling in that bracket. I didn't think Sterling was a heavy hitter. We've got to think of him like that now. We've got to expect him to be, 10-5, 11 next season, which, I still can't get my head around that he is going to be that. But he's going to have to be, isn't he? Because he's the second top scoring player. So he's got to get some credit. In any other season, without Salah around, he would have been top
player? He didn't even start in the team, did he? I think he missed the first 2 weeks.
He was top.
Forced his way in.
Yeah, it was only behind Salah points for Matt. 35 attacking returns he got, because I had him down as my biggest surprise as well. 35 attacking returns, but the previous best was 21. So he's added 14 kind of assists or goals this year versus last year. Amazing
progression, and that gets missed a lot. Vardy did very well, obviously, to finish the second best striker behind Kane. That's surprising. But I go back to what Az says and talking about disappointing players, and he's absolutely right with the strikers, because one of my players that no one's mentioned yet, Tammy Abraham. Tammy Abraham was a player we all kind of looked at the start of the season, and he looked actually pretty good to begin with. He looked like he was going to be our budget striker. He started the season 5 million. What a gift he would have been. But he just didn't produce for Swansea. He fell out of the team, didn't get back in when Carvajal took over. He moved Ayew up front. Ironically, he actually looked good in the last couple of games. It looked like had he played him, he might have got him a few goals. I think Abraham will go on loan next season, and he will do it again to us. He will convince us that he's a budget striker to look at, and we might fall into the trap again. So he's a young player. We shouldn't be, laying into him, but he just kind of epitomises the struggle we've had to find.
Do you know who the top scoring forward was under 7 million?
Perez.
Perez, yeah. Was it Perez?
Perez, yeah. Someone I never even considered, not once.
And so I do think the budget strikers did let us down. And also you mentioned the Bournemouth players. I think you're right. Defoe, King and Wilson, one of them should have been a hero for us at some point. And no, it just didn't happen, did it? And Defoe was such a big player for me last season. And King was as well. So, yeah, that was disappointing, I think. So, yeah, must try harder, that lot, really. But I do think Tammy's got big things in him as a fancy asset. And he is going to get underpriced again. And then he's going to, in his breakthrough season, if it's next season or the year after, he's going to be a fancy hero. It's just he's a bit like James Ward-Prowse now, I think. You know, we're looking at James Ward-Prowse. He's going to have that season. He's such a good player. He gets loads of crosses in. He's going to have that big season as a budget asset. And I think it hasn't arrived for him yet. But Tammy Abraham's in that bracket now. Every summer we're going to look at him and go, he's going to go on loan and he could get quite a few goals and justify a budget price tag. But I don't know if it'll be next season. It certainly wasn't this one. So that's me. What's next, Jonty?
Yeah, so who's going to be in our Game Week 1 side? So obviously Tammy Abraham's in yours. Well, we know that. We've got one name there. So Thunder 66 UK, looking ahead to next season, which players do you think will be essential from Game Week 1? So we haven't seen the fixtures yet, obviously, so difficult to say. But nevertheless, It's nice to have a bit of fun with it. Dynamic. What price do we expect Salah to be? And would you have him in your team at any price? Awesome O, which of the relegated players do you hope will be back in the FPL? So he mentions Butland, Fabianski and Shaqiri. So he's hoping they'll be back. And old Ben Kenobi, old friend, who from the promoted or potentially promoted sides, because we've got Villa and Fulham. One of those is going to go through. We've already got Cardiff and Wolves. So which of them, which players are from those teams are we already eyeing up?
Wow, okay. Well, I'll go through this quite quickly. Next season, who am I going to... I want Arnautovic. I think you mentioned the talismans, Jonty, and I think that's spot on. I think that Arnautovic is going to be a key man for West Ham now if he plays up front. If Moyes stays, that's the big question. Other essentials, and Kane won't be. We won't start the season as Kane essential because of the August thing, but because Spurs won't be at home for the first 3 matches or 4 matches. So I do think we're going to be looking at the Liverpool fullbacks. I think Robertson and Alexander-Arnold, if they start pre-season and look like first choice and look like starting, then one of them two will be in our teams because they're both really good going forward. So a Liverpool fullback, I think, will be in there with probably Arnautovic for me, and I might well go to Zaha as well because his progress recently has just indicated that he is going to explode. And what's his price tag next year is going to be problematic for FBL because I don't think they're going to go higher than 758 maybe, but he could be a £10 million player given the consistency he showed in the final game weeks. So it's particularly if Hodgson plays him up front, which when you've got Benteke as your option, he's going to play Zaha up front probably. I don't know. Let's see. I mean, they've got to go shopping, but whether they can get a striker, because everyone's going to be after one of those. Salah, what would I pay for him? He's going to be 13, isn't he? I think he's going to be 13. Would I pay for it that? I don't know. I guess 13.
I thought it'd be more.
Yeah, no,
I don't think they're going to go higher than 13.
I was thinking 14.
You think 14?
Season? No way.
Do you remember when Van Persie came in at 14 million? He had that great season.
Yeah.
And then he came in at 14 million. And I remember talking to you about this, Mark, and you were going, because you love Van Persie, and you were just like, he could have said 30 million. You still would have said, yeah, I'll have him in. And for me, that was that notch above acceptable. And I think I'd feel the same about Salah because I start thinking about what else we could do with the money. 13 would tempt me. 12, he's in. 14, nah.
Exactly, which is why I think it'll be 13 because they'll put it at a level where people go, oh. They won't go 14. If they go 14, people just go, no. Whereas 13, it's that, that's a horrible price. Because
that's what Aguero has come in at. Kane would come in at, those kinds of, and that's what you're dealing with there. Plus, he gets more points because he's not going to be reclassified.
No, and the thing is,
isn't that the highest scoring FPL player of all time?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't he be 14?
Because I think they made a mistake.
I agree with that. But he's only done it for one season. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
When you look at the way that Van Persie came in at 14 and Aguero and Kane have come in at 13 in recent years, It's because they've done it time and time again, and I think Salah will do it again next season. But you just have to question perhaps how much of the pricing factors into the fact that it was just one season, which obviously takes nothing away from it. But you pay that kind of money for Kane and Aguero because they've done it before. Second season syndrome could come in. I don't think it will. But I mean, I would pay 13 million for Salah. But I mean, I personally, I don't know. I think 12 million is more likely. But we'll have to see.
Do you think if we get any rule changes, particularly with the bonus points, which I'll be pushing for, and players like Salah, who has managed to pull this off, having not got that many, I don't know what his bonus points are, but he certainly missed out on loads that
26, I think.
Yeah. If those rules were changed and the penalties weren't so harsh, I think he could, I think he'd be even better value.
He'd have everything then, wouldn't he? Corners, penalties, playing for an attacking side, bonus, goals. He'd be the complete midfield, so gets more points. Clean sheet.
If he was taking corners and penalties, then we might think about 14. It depends what else you can put together with and without him, doesn't it? I mean, that's the thing.
Do you think he'd be a midfielder?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, until they bring in an attacking midfield position, which I keep lobbying for, and everyone keeps ignoring me, I don't think they can make him anything other. Because Liverpool are going to buy, aren't they? They're probably going to recruit in that area again. I just don't see it. So,
I think Az is right. Actually, they should reclassify him.
He's as much as a striker.
If they're not going to introduce an attacking midfielder, then why not? Why not move? Sanchez and maybe reduce his price, but Salah, Mane, they should all really be forwards. I think the play up front. Why not Sterling? And the play
Zaha's another one as well.
Yeah,
why shouldn't they be?
I think they go back. I think they might look back at previous decisions. Say, for example, Ronaldo when he was at Manchester United, and he's a very similar type of position, as in he wasn't a centre forward nor Salah, and he's scoring coming in from the side. And you would say to Salah, "What are you?" He'd say he's a winger. And at the time, Ronaldo wasn't that centre forward. But now, if Ronaldo came back to Manchester United, for example, and was in FPL, he would be a forward. He'd be classified as a forward. And I think that's the problem they've got. We've only seen one season of Salah, and he didn't play as a centre forward. And I think that's going to weigh heavily.
We're not saying as a centre forward. We're saying as a forward. Yeah,
well, that's the way. I think the way they look at it is if you've got three up front, say, for example, with Chelsea, you had Costa or Morata, and then maybe you would have Hazard behind a support striker or number 10 or whatever, or just on a wing, whatever you want to put them. That's where they're going to be positioned there. But it almost doesn't matter how many goals they score. I think that's the way they'll look at it. So, arguably, Firmino should still have been a midfielder because he's kind of a centre forward, but not really.
If you look at his average position, it's behind Salah.
Well, yeah, exactly. So he's positioned in that team to partly create space for the other players to come forward, which is the way Liverpool have been playing for the last couple of seasons very effectively in attack. So yeah, I mean that's going to rumble over summer, and it's a really good discussion topic that will just keep going until we get the game launched.
And, Sanchez is a good example. He stayed a midfielder and he was up front for much of the season for Arsenal the season before. Yeah. So I just don't see it. It's a very similar case, I think. Just going on to the the team's players going down. Shaqiri, I guess, is the only one. Fabianski, I know Jonty's going to say, but Shaqiri I'd like to keep in the Premier League. I think he was looking very promising towards the end, depends on his price. And players coming up. I mean, we're already looking at these. We've got articles coming out this week, and the one that jumps out is Douglas, the left back for Wolves, who 14 assists and 5 goals, I think it is. Which, we've seen these fullbacks promise that before and not deliver when they come up to top flight.
Yeah, Tommy Smith this year.
Tommy Smith, exactly.
Trippier as well.
But I think Douglas is one to keep an eye on, and Morrison for Cardiff, who's a big threat at set pieces. I think there's the two, because I think it's defenders we're going to look at. I don't think we're going to look at necessarily attacking players, although Jota for Wolves looks extraordinary in terms of his
general look. Because I reckon they're going to spend. I mean, I was talking to Wolves fan. He reckons they're going to spend like 100 million or something, 150 million on players. So, and they're going to come in at probably what 6 million some of their players. So
I mean,
might be our budget.
I mean, looking at the promoted sides, I was looking at things like, say, goal involvement as well. Obviously, you mentioned Jota there. He's fantastic, 17 goals there. So, yeah, just around about a fifth of all their goals he's been involved in. So you'd be wanting to look at his price, something like, obviously, anything 6 or below. He's tempted. Anything above that, I wouldn't bother really. But you also got to look at partnerships. Now, I'm really keen on Villa coming up, but at the same time, I'm really keen on Fulham coming up. It's real because I wish Cardiff weren't there because they're awful, really. And Villa,
knife in
get a knife out for their
Warnock's not like that.
Warnock is going to, I mean, that's just a no-go zone. So Villa and Fulham are two teams I really want. Why I want Villa to come up. So Snodgrass is there on loan at the moment, but he's their assist machine there, and he's assisting defenders. This is like an FPL dream. So I looked at what's the best partnership in the Championship as well, and Robert Snodgrass is positioned 2 and 3 with Adamoah and Chester as well. So he set up 4 goals each for those. I mean, James Chester, Robert Snodgrass. Axis of wonderment, cheap budget wonderment would be fantastic. But of course, it's Sessegnon for Fulham is the player we all want to see. It's absolutely a phenomenal record there, 15 goals. Now, if he is going to be, so what is he? A left back? Is he a left wing back?
I think he's a midfielder, winger? Isn't he? He's a midfielder.
Well, no, Mark, you shouldn't be saying that because FPL will be watching. Yeah. What you should be saying now is he's a left back. He's a defender. He's nothing like
Bale.
He spends more time in the Fulham box than
he is
anywhere
not
else.
A winger at all. What we want, it's a bit like when Gareth Bale was.
You want him as a fullback, don't you?
He was a left back despite being an attacker. But this is what we want. We want Sessegnon as a left back in everyone's team. I'd pay up to 7 million for that.
So I just want to get someone called Sessegnon back in my team because I love Stefan so much.
But I just want to, just before we move on to everyone else, I just want to quickly say something about Game Week 1. And I turned to basically one of my favourite programmes, Seinfeld. It's a character there, George Costanza, and he's sick of his life being a mess. Mm-hmm. So he decides to try and do the opposite of everything for a week. And everything he does that's the opposite of everything he would have done goes right for him. So he gets a great new job, meets a girl, gets a new flat, everything goes right. So that's exactly what we need to do in Game Week 1. Make all your decisions, do all your planning, 11 a.m. on Saturday morning, do exactly the opposite, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And there's evidence that this works. So this time last season, I did an article looking at the Game Week 1 scout pick side for the previous season and what actually happened in that game week. And it was completely the opposite. So we all picked Leicester players. They were the champions. They all flopped. They were all hopeless at that first Game Week 1. Because actually most champions don't do so well the next season. City could be the exception. City could be the exception there, we'll note. But what happened again this season? Everyone got Chelsea players in, and what happened? They got thumped by Burnley. So we also avoided Arsenal and Liverpool players that Game Week 1 of the previous season. We also avoided Arsenal and Leicester players the Game Week 1 this season. What happened to the biggest scoring games? Absolutely huge. We all missed out there. So we had our ideas about what was going to happen. They were wrong. Do the opposite.
So you're going to make your team close to deadline on the Saturday?
No, I'm going to make my team really well researched and for the whole summer, and then at 11 o'clock I'm going to do the opposite of whatever I
change it.
Is it auto pick?
Yeah, just press auto pick.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you mentioned about City, because I think what will be strange next season, I suppose, is we won't have that kind of data in terms of lineup. Obviously they'll play pre-season friendlies, but rotation was a big problem for City players at the start. I mean, as we've mentioned, Sterling did play at the beginning. So, I mean, I don't think any of us would suggest that City would struggle at the start of next season. But from an FPL perspective, it might actually be really difficult to pick, who's nailed on. I mean, for example, if Aguero and Jesus are still there, which one do you pick? I mean, one of them's probably going to be essential maybe 50% of the time, or they may play together. I mean, as we said, we can look at pre-season friendlies, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily count for too much when the season starts. So it will be an interesting debate and dilemma to have, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen at the end of the season as well, Pep is so... I mean, there's no logic to the pattern. There's no logic to when he rests players. Like Otamendi got rested, 4 of the last 6 or something? It's just crazy. Yeah. Very odd indeed. Okay, coming over to Andy to ask him about Salah and his price, and also players for Game Week 1. Who are you looking at?
So I've actually already got my full 15 lined up here, so I'm just going to go through them one by one. Yeah, I haven't written down too many players. Obviously, we've got to take in fixtures, form, transfers, etc. But I think, if Spurs don't sign a new left back, then Ben Davis would then suddenly become an option. I think Rose might leave there. I think I'm going to get in whoever Man United's left back is at the start of the season. So either Ashley Young will be reclassified, maybe Luke Shaw will finally get a go. And there's rumours of Danny Rose, Sandro at Juventus. I don't know how realistic that is, but one of them would be nice. And I think Man United bias coming out again, but Sanchez is finally going to get a rest from football over the summer. He doesn't have to play the World Cup or anything. I think he has to get a price drop as well, even if it's a minor one. And I'm just hoping he can do something next season. He was a huge disappointment. And then Hazard as well. If Conte leaves, I think Hazard might become an option, because I noticed that he had that awful season when Mourinho got fired, even though he'd done well the previous season. Then Conte came in and he did well, and he's had another not-so-good season. So I just wonder if a new manager comes in, just might kind of reignite the flame for Hazard. So I look at him, and maybe I don't know if he'll get a price drop, but he's definitely not going to be any more than he is now. So they're kind of players I'm looking at. And as far as no one's mentioned yet, Aubameyang has just come in and absolutely nailed it. He's just scoring or assisting every game. So he's definitely got to be one to look at. Salah's price, I don't know, 13, it just sounds too high, but I suppose if Kane's 13, why not? If he's under 13, I think I'd probably want to have him in from the start, just to kind of for safety, and one of those players that you can then transfer to anyone else, because it would likely be the highest priced midfielder. And then I did have a look at players that I might want to come back who've been relegated, but they're all a bit rubbish, really. I mean, maybe like Fabianski or Butland, if they're kind of low priced mid-table team. I mean, I think Fabianski is much better than a lot of the keepers in the league, especially. Butland's okay, not as good as Fabianski, I would say. But those, and then I don't know, maybe someone like Alfie Mawson could be okay if he's priced right. Otherwise, you mentioned Shakira. I don't think there's too many others. And promoted teams, I'm not even going to mention it because I haven't got a clue. I'll research that closer to the start of the season.
Well, the thing is, Wolves are going to change their line. They're probably going to sign 20 players, Wolves, so we can look at their players now. But what 11 they're going to have at the start of the season could be very, very different indeed. As what about you? How much for Salah? Would you go 14?
If he's a mid, I'm paying whatever. Really? Because he has got the corners, and he has got the. He's going to take the free kick. He's going to try and win the golden boot again. They're going to give him everything again.
He did say post match, I'm going to win it again next year.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, you don't often get, it's because it's been Kane for the last few seasons who's been that guy, and it was kind of Van Persie before and Aguero. To have a midfielder who's got that, so he gets the extra points for the goals, he gets the clean sheet point, which it all adds up. So many mini leagues have been won and lost by 1 or 2 points that I've read about. So yeah, if Salah's a mid, he's in. He plays for an attacking side. He's got everything I want. I think Liverpool in general are going to be really, really strong next year. I think they've finally got a decent defence now. I think Van Dijk was just the signing of the season, and Robertson is looking absolutely brilliant. So I'll probably be starting with Robertson or Van Dijk. I think in defence they've got Kai to come in as well, who's going to add something. If they can keep Chan as well. Suddenly, they've got a really, really strong team. I think they could be challenging for the title next year. So Liverpool I'm looking at. Mendy, I really want to get in.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I've written him down.
Yeah, if he starts for City, he will be the first name on my list if he starts, because he's my perfect kind of player. Really attacking, fullback / wing back. So I'd be getting him. And Pascal Gross. He'll be straight back in my team next year. I mean, what price do you reckon he'll come in at? 6, 5?
Yeah, I don't think he'll go up that much at all. But I think he's like Zaha, he's like Arnautovic, like Jonty said, the talismans in their teams. And Shaqiri was that for Stoke. These players have to play because they're so pivotal and they're always involved in everything their teams do. And I think we're going to get on in a moment about how to get into the top 5K. And one of the key things that I would say is identify these players and stick by them, because had we done that with Mahrez, we'd have ended the season with that flourish rather than.
I think the one kind of person who doesn't really fit that is De Bruyne, because I think he's the talisman of City, but there's better options around.
There's other players around him, but if you look at Zaha and Arnautovic, Gross, Shaqiri, there's no one around them that are at that level. And I think we've got to find those players again next season. If it's not those names, then it'll be others. So I think that's the case. Okay, we'll move on, I think, because we've got another couple of questions to do. And the next one's from FBL Professor Jonty.
Yeah, so he wants to know what's the difference between a top 50,000 player and a top 5,000 player. So he, as a very active FPL player, he says he finishes in the top 50,000 regularly, but he would like to finish much, much higher. How does he do that? He wants our advice.
We'll come to you first, Granville. You're shaking your head there. I mean, is there any advice we can give someone here?
Didn't Gary Player once said, the more I practice, the luckier I get? Well, it doesn't. This is the thing. I mean, probably I'm not the best person to ask here because I do generally finish between 30k and 50k. So I have finished in the top. Well, John will tell everybody because he thinks it's hilarious. I've finished in the top K for quite a few years, and I don't know. I mean, you have to get a good start. That's one thing, and you have to kick on. It's quite obvious, really. I mean, you just need to maintain consistency and not take too many risks. With me, I think I was on target for getting sort of maybe top 10k, but I think my second wild card just kind of threw me off, and then I was just like up and down for the rest of the season. You just got to maintain consistency and probably study and probably put in quite a bit of time. I don't have quite as much time anymore in FPL. That's not an excuse. I generally don't. And some things I do miss, and I guess life sometimes gets in the way.
Yeah, there is that thing called life. I've heard of it, and it is an obstacle sometimes. I mean, Andy, you've come in the top 50k. I mean, obviously, everyone we're trying to improve next season as well, but it is difficult because it just seems there's such fine margins, isn't there, between the 100k, 50k, 5k, and it's difficult to identify what it is. But we touched on it a few last week, didn't we? You talk about the risk taking and almost adopting that dullard approach. I mean, do you stand by that as a method to try and break the top 5k?
I think so. I find it I've only finished in the top 5k once, which was last year. And I tried to kind of think about what I did differently compared to this year, but it wasn't. I took way more hits last year. I took nearly double the amount of hits. So, a lot of people will tell you straight away, well, you don't take hits. And maybe for consistency, you don't. But I just look at last season. I don't really see what I did differently. I think for the most, I finished 21k. It was I think in the end it was about 20-ish, 25 points off the top 10k. So it was a fair bit in the end. Just a few mistakes here and there. But generally, like I think Granville says, be consistent. The top players are top players for a reason. Obviously, yes, it's annoying when they get a couple of blanks, but they'll usually come good. So patience, I think, is something that a lot of the top managers will see. And they won't take hits too quickly to get players in and out. They'll just stick with them. And again, like I said this last week, whether you want to call it safe, dullard, boring, whatever, it works. And the punts are nice. Like if you go for a punt on a random player as captain, like defenders, for example, always come up. Oh, I'm going to punt on the defender this week. What if he gets a goal and clean sheet? I mean, there's a reason most of the players don't do that because it very rarely happens. Like Robertson and Van Arnold, to do it once in a season, let alone both on the same game week, is super rare. So I think you have to make the boring choice. And none of us did it really this year. If Salah's scoring every week, he's the one you captain, and you just wait until he goes completely out of form, which he never did. So we missed a trick there. And obviously, that's part of the kind of prediction is who's going to do that. If you've got someone who's given you a gift of 8-10 points every week, you take it. You don't try and be different for the sake of it. Is kind of what I would say.
What about you, Az? I mean, you've had a fine season. I mean, do you identify what you did differently this season compared to others, and maybe that can help this guy out?
Yeah, I mean, you got to find the balance between trying to be too clever and kind of going with the crowd. Because I mean, the crowd a lot of the time is sensible. So, like captaining Salah, it's sensible. You could have tried to be different and captain Firmino against Watford, and you would have lost out on 28 points. What you've got to do is you've got to get the players who there's a lot of sense to getting them in, and then around the edges getting players like Arnautovic and like Gross and the talisman that we keep mentioning, because they're the ones that are going to climb you up the ranks. I think the two main things that I've done differently this year have been, as I said, sticking to my own decisions more. So I've been leaving my transfers till later. I've been making my transfers Friday, Saturday rather than during the week when I suddenly feel inspired. And I've been waiting and thinking about them all week. But I've also been, if I come on, and I think the Scoutcast has helped because I've come on the Scoutcast, I've said my transfers, I've said my moves, I've said my captain, and then I think 99% of the time I haven't changed that. Whereas I think last year I'd be making last-minute captain changes, last-minute transfers, and things like that. So I think when you've got a plan, you have to stick to it. You've got to, if you've done your research and you talk to people and you know what you're doing, if you're a top 50k manager, you know what you're doing. And I reckon a lot of the time, your mistakes are going to be going against what you think is right. And that's genuine, I think. And I also think what's been really good this year is I've been having a lot more conversations with people about football in general and about players in general and who's good. So, I mean, all the talks about Willian I've had with people and on Arnautovic. And
can't resist getting it.
I can't resist it. But like, when you're talking to people, your actual views and your beliefs about players come out quite a lot. And if you use Twitter and if you use the site, you don't have to always just go on it and just say, A, B, or C, who should I get in? Like, go on there and say, start a conversation about these random players, and suddenly you might learn a lot more about players you might not have considered and things like that. I think make use of the community would be my other bit of advice as well. So yeah, community.
Yeah, there's so much out there now, isn't there? And David, you've been part of that. I mean, what would you say for this one? Because I mean, it's a classic, isn't it? It's like basic tips, I guess, to try and break the top 50k. It is very difficult to come up with a bulletproof plan to do that. It depends what the season gives us to much to the extent, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm talking to a lot of people in the community this year who've done well. I mean, like some of the other guys have said, a lot of it comes down to playing almost conservatively. So in one of those seasons where actually hits haven't generally been rewarded, a lot of players eventually will reward you if you give them a bit of time. And one piece of advice that I've actually taken from the guys that who got the assist, I talked to Tom quite a lot, and he talks a lot about psychology. And he says the best advice he's often seen that tends to work is talking to people, like Az says, and because it basically affects you, it stops you from getting confirmation bias. Effectively, if you spent a whole week sat there just thinking, I think this player is going to do really well, and you just keep it up here, you'll keep believing it eventually. But if you take that question to some people in the community on the site, maybe have a look at some of the stats in the members area about consistency, or maybe some of the underlying stats as well, then maybe it might change your mind. I definitely think being more open with people about it makes a difference. I mean, particular example with me, when I was at the Herald before we had our podcast, where I foolishly decided whoever got the lowest score each week would have to do a forfeit on the podcast, which I thought
which we're bringing in next season, of course.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. So yeah, get ready, guys. But I think the problem was that between me and my two colleagues, Jack and Beren, we kind of just we went really insular. We decided all of a sudden that when we had this situation of I might have to eat a chili or sing a song or do a bit of opera or do something stupid. When you
writing these down, John T.
Yeah, get them down. Yeah, we'll get some Crystal Palace shirts going. But when you sort of kind of worried about revealing what your plans are to people, we all actually found, the three of us, we really struggled because we weren't able to actually have an open conversation about what to do. Confirmation bias to set in, and we made some really bad decisions because no one was able to kind of look over our shoulder and go, "Well, that's not really. You sure that's a good idea?" So yeah, and yeah, as has been said, the community out there is fantastic. Twitter has been great this year. The forums on FFS have been great as well. So
you want to avoid groupthink though. That's the balance as well. Is letting people kind of sway you, but
that's true.
If you really believe something, then kind of stick with it. It's all about the balance, isn't it?
That's probably what it comes down to. Yeah,
I think one thing you said there is what I think I mentioned it a bit last week is not talking to people. Is I get blinkers on.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'll choose one person and I will not look at anyone else. And Jesus was, I still think Jesus was a good option. Logically, he was okay. But I never once considered keeping Vardy or getting Aubameyang or just looking elsewhere. And I think a lot of people do that. You just get blinkers on. He's the best option. I won't even consider anyone else.
Yeah, and I did that with Van Dijk this week. I didn't really get onto the site enough. I didn't really talk to people enough because obviously the last game week of the season for me is absolutely manic, and we're doing so much preparation for it in the build-up. I made up my mind, and I almost parked my transfer. Like, they're done. That's in the back of my head now. I'm not even going to think about them. And I'm sure if I'd had a bit more time to get involved in discussions on the site, or with even over a cup of tea at work or whatever, Robertson would have sprung up, and I might have gone, oh yeah, because in hindsight, looking at it, it was obvious, wasn't it? But I didn't. You're absolutely right. You've got to have that kind of mix of views, and just to make sure, just a sanity check that you are making the right decision. At the end of the day, it is your decision. You don't want to bring groupthink into it, but it can help to get a different opinion. I mean, John T, what's your views on this? It must be something that, you've obviously had a few finishes in the top 50k, but can you identify what you did in those seasons?
Well, yeah, I've had a few in the top 5k actually as well.
Yeah.
So and the thing about it's about the game is luck. And
yeah, you're going on the. Yeah, we haven't talked about luck. Have we?
The game is luck, and what it's about, the skill bit, is narrowing the odds and giving yourself the best opportunity to be lucky. So, for example, last season, I put too much of my budget in 2 or 3 players. So that meant the other players were weaker. So if those 3 players flop, then I haven't got much to fall back on. I learned from that this season, and I spread that out. So I didn't have more than 2 players that cost more than 10 million. So if I kept it like that, so I had lots of kind of 8 million kind of players, and I had a few 9 million players, one of which was Salah, who wasn't one of my main players at the start. It was actually De Bruyne and Lukaku were my 2 big players, and Salah was just let's give him a go. But that's what you're doing. You're narrowing the odds, and that's so all the usual. Look at form fixture, keep hits to a minimum sometimes, but as Andy says, it can work out. Plan well in advance, but be kind of flexible with that and be ready to move very quickly. For example, this season, City, it became apparent after about 3 or 4 game weeks that they were something special, but it wasn't apparent the first couple of game weeks. That first Brighton game, they just looked quite good, and they struggled really to get a result there. And we thought, and De Bruyne wasn't really firing the first couple of game weeks. So suddenly they were, and so we had to get on that quick. And so if you leave yourself with all your budget in 2 or 3 players, then you're kind of restricting that. But if you make yourself a bit more flexible, so a lot of people say, oh, we should go for 4 at the back, go for wing backs, go for 5-man midfield and things like that. And I didn't really go for any of those strategies because I didn't know which strategy would be the best strategy for the next month or 2. And that's the thing, kind of, I've spoken about it before, be yogic, be flexible with it. We don't know this time next season whether it's going to be 3-5-2 is going to be the dominant one, 4-3-3. We don't know. So make sure you can, when it emerges, that's the good thing to go for. Make sure you can. So yeah, I mean that's definitely the lesson I learned from a bad season and a good season. And I'm going to try and stick with that. When that strategy fails, then there's no hope for me.
Well, I think the strikers, though, if you look at it, I mean, given that Vardy was the second highest scorer, I want the 3-4-3. I'm seriously thinking, my best season was when I had 5 in midfield, and obviously Josh King was the gift. And I think that I'm seriously going to think of looking at starting with 1 big heavy hitter and hopefully finding budget strikers. But we didn't have that this season, so that we almost wanted to play 5 in midfield, but we couldn't because there wasn't any budget strikers. You've
got to go with the pricing of the players and the form of those particular players, and it kind of emerges after time. So something that you picked up on really quick was it Sunderland's? Was it Anachibi?
Yeah, I got him in.
4.5. So suddenly you've got a playing 4.5 striker, and that immediately sends the message to savvy managers like you. Oh, hang on a minute, I can go 3-5-2 now because there's lots of midfielders. They score more than forwards. And players like me, I didn't actually, I didn't follow that advice I've just given about being flexible, and I didn't move for that. So next season, there might be, like this season, no real viable good third striker, no 4.5 that enables you to bench them and really go to town in the midfield. That didn't really happen. We had to kind of invest 5 million at a push, and they were pretty poor. So 5.5, Murray was a fairly okay one. It's just the way it worked out, really. And next season we might be. So that's something to look out for. It's a really big thing. If one of the promoted teams, for example, has got a form 4.5 striker that's playing, then there's your first sub, definitely. And then you can look at midfielders and go, hang on a minute, I can get 5 of them.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I don't think we're going to get that, but I think there's just a lack of the 5.5-6 million strikers that we could rely on. Really did hold us back in being able to go 5 in midfield, and I don't really think I ever managed it all season. And I set out like that and it didn't work. So I'm hoping that will be the case. But I think flexibility with the formation is key, because I think Barrett said, didn't he? He played 5 at the back for a while, and I know that Az did as well. And I think we get stuck in this 3-4-3. We've got to go with big strikers. But when you look at the fact that Vardy was the second highest scorer, maybe Aubameyang changes that. Maybe Aubameyang, Kane. I think, unless City, it's clear who's starting up front, we can count Aguero and Jesus out of that. So maybe Aubameyang, Kane would be the way to go. Maybe, I don't know, maybe one of the other teams, maybe Lukaku will come strong, but I think we're going to end up packing the midfield again.
But it's also, you have to it has to pick up on that emerging trend as well. The striker pool is getting smaller because, so for example, you look at the teams. West Ham, who's their striker? Samatovic, a midfielder. You look at Liverpool, who's the best player there? He's a midfielder. You look at Sanchez, wherever he's been playing, he's a midfielder, but he's the guy that's scoring it. So the pool of strikers is much smaller, and it's something that fantasy managers have had to adapt to because the games themselves haven't. You mentioned about getting an attacking midfielder position; they haven't adapted to that, and so they haven't. They made Firmino. They moved him from midfield to striker. So that was a striker option that we suddenly had. It did reduce his points as well. So, yeah, as I said, you've got to be looking at those prices and just to see where those players are coming in.
Well, we'll be here in pre-season to help with that one. Well, sounds like Jonty's going to pick his team again and scrap all those plans at the last minute. It's a good theory, though. I do like the idea. Yeah. Okay, final question then, Jonty.
Yeah, final question is best Scoutcast moment. Now, there's a few contenders that people, so we'll just kind of mention whichever one's here. So I'll mention there's three here that mentioned. Mark Harbrow has said that it was the your wild card, Mark, where we savaged it basically. Yeah, we spent about an hour ripping shreds off you. Me and Gramble are some kind of tag team there, and Fitzy liked the bit where myself and Gramble pulled off a magic trick by managing to pass a glass of water to each other through the magic of
twice. That was
twice we managed that as well.
Can we try it now? I haven't got water here. I've got. What have you got there? What have you got there?
You're going to try and recreate it?
I've got a glass of water there.
You can turn a glass of water into a pencil or something.
And what about
hang on, where are you? Are you next to me? Right. Okay. So.
Have you got a remote control?
You're never going to be able to do it.
So, Mark, if you talk for a minute.
Yeah, I can do that. I can talk for how many minutes? Just 1 minute, maybe. I don't know. Let's see. But I don't. Yeah, does that work? Did you just do it? We're never going to do it.
It's possible. It's possible. It was a chance moment of pure magic.
Yeah. Apparently, there was a second one as well.
Yeah, and there was a second one.
And this is actually my favourite one. Is Mysterian and Mika Eel say it was when we had Hall of Fame #1 Jay on, and he lost the lead for his computer, and he was desperately trying to find.
He ran out of power, didn't he?
He was running out of power, and he took us on a tour of his house. So he picked up his phone, which he was broadcasting from, and he just went all around over. And the live chat was excellent. People were saying, "Oh my God, is he really making an omelette in the middle of this?" Or
well, that's like through the keyhole, wasn't it?
Nice living room, and we had a fantastic tour. And myself and Az, being ever so professional, were trying to contain our laughter. And various people have been putting screenshots of myself and Az about to explode. We managed to keep it in, but that was my personal favourite.
Yeah, no, it was good. I do think, the podcast around my wildcard, they were a great podcast because it was just very entertaining to kind of fend off the Big Daddy Giant Haystacks grapple match that was going on during those Scoutcasts. I had a tough time, and in my defence, like Trent Alexander-Arnold, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, they could be on the plane. I could be that I was picking Gareth Southgate's team for him back in game week 4. I mean, that was the wild card was extraordinary, and it wasn't my greatest. I don't think it was my worst. I probably played worse than that, but it was just funny, those moments. Also, there was that other moment where I think one of us scratched their nose, and then within seconds, all four of us did it. Yeah, do you remember that? It was,
for some reason I didn't. I probably just missed it, but it was a subliminal message. You did it.
Extraordinary moments like that. But I think in terms of quality of the Scoutcast, I think that obviously the one we had when we had Jay on, because the timing of that was perfect, because that was just before Kane exit, and obviously Barrett's appearance last week was excellent as well. I think going forward, I think that's what we're going to try and do. We're going to try and get people in, top managers, going to get people in from other podcasts and other sites as well to chip in, because I think having guests on freshens it up as well. Not that the regulars are not great as well, but I think those are highlights are always when we get those guests on and when they're fighting at the top of the FBL. And the thing with Jay was just extraordinary, and we must get him on next season, and we'll probably talk about Kane exit then as well. I'm sure he's going to be doing well next season because he always does, doesn't he? So those are highlights for me. I mean, Andy, you got any? I mean, you've been on them all, haven't you?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think you've covered them. The one I was going to say, which I didn't think was going to get brought up as more like a whole Scoutcast, like you said, rather than a moment. But I thought Barrett was just almost like a breath of fresh air. He was so like enthusiastic, energetic. Because a lot of times when you speak to someone who's number one that high up, they're quite closed about it for obvious reasons. That's exactly how I would be. He was really open about it and just generally a really happy guy. And it was nice to have him on. So that was kind of in the last few weeks. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, and we had Bowstring and we had Peter on as well. I mean, all these kind of when you get these people involved, it just adds something, obviously, because we've never been in their situation where we've been really high up in the FBL, and it's just I just love getting insight into that. And Barrett, you're absolutely right. It was very interesting to get that view. Like 2 weeks from the end of the season, his approach was extraordinary. I certainly would be a closed book and would be. I was amazed he even came on, to be honest. I was trying to talk him out of it. I was like, you sure? Because I really don't think, perhaps it's not a good idea this week.
He regrets it now.
Yeah, well, I don't think we played a part in it. I think he had an extraordinary run of lap with his defence in particular. He got 0 points again on the final day, didn't he, from his defence? So, but yeah, he was great when he came on, of course. Yeah. What about you, Az? You've been on them all as well. I think your season has you said your season benefit, which is very nice of you. I'd like to think that we've all contributed. I mean, I'm sure Jonty's not too happy about contributing to his season, given that he just about beat him. But any highlights this season?
It's still J1 for me. I mean, when I first started doing these last year, I remember my second Scoutcast, I did exactly the same thing. My laptop battery died, and I remember running down the stairs, and Jonty posted a gif of that. Was it a Sesame Street character running down the road? And I can't get that out of my head. So yeah, that one was brilliant. But no, it's been great. It's been really nice to come on, and it's a shame Luke hasn't been able to do more because him and I were kind of sharing the spotlight at the start, and I think because of work and things, he hasn't been able to. So
yeah, his shifts have changed. But
we'll
mix it up. We'll mix it up a lot more next season, that's for sure. And David, you're going to be part of it, of course. I mean, don't expect you to recall your favourite Scoutcast moment because that's quite limited. But hopefully, you're looking forward to being on it every week next season.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, that was one of the things I was looking forward to most. I think, starting at the Scouts. I mean, going back to what I was saying earlier, I mean, I think it always benefits, how well you do on FPL when you talk to people and kind of thrash out issues and get different side of things. And as you mentioned, we're planning to get on some good guests next year who've got good records. Jay obviously is a great one. It'd be good to have him on again, and hopefully leaves his laptop unplugged before he records. So hopefully we'll have a few more moments like that as well. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm coming to you last, Granville, because you are the legend of the Scoutcast, of course, the former co-host where we used to do it. We've done Scoutcast in some various venues. I mean, this is professional by comparison, would you believe? But we had that one, of course, in my cellar, which we often talk about, which sounded like we were in a fish tank. But yeah, I mean, highlights this season. I mean, you've been on a good few this season. Anything stand out for you?
I've got to say, because I do miss a fair few now, and I don't mind it. And sometimes I tune in, and I actually tuned in to watch the one with Jay, and I thought it was really entertaining. And it wasn't just. I thought he had quite a lot to say. So I do think freshening it up. I mean, I don't mind being the sacrificial lamb, of course, because I think it does need it does need freshening up, does need a boost, and people like to hear from different people. Because there's always a story there as well when you bring on someone new. I think people have probably heard enough of me over the years, but there's always I mean I don't really do the myths anymore. I guess I've sort of changed a little bit. I mean the myths they are there, but I tend not to dwell on them quite as much. I think this year I've actually been quite pleased with the way that I've done because I sort of stopped the rot. I've had a couple of really bad seasons where just nothing went right. And I did play it quite steady up until about a few weeks ago. So I have enjoyed this season actually a bit more than I have done the last couple of seasons. And having players like Salah from the start. Really, boosted my season and kept interest. But as I say, what I'd like. I mean, I say this every year. Next season, I'd like to see changes in the game.
Yeah, you always say that.
I always do because I get bored. And yeah, I know every season's different and everything, but with the way that this season, the way that all the chips panned out, we all played them at the same time. We knew which game weeks we were going to play them, and I think having it so predictable like that is I don't know. I think it takes a little bit away from the game. I think what I'd like to see, I mean, all the things that I've mentioned in the past about half-point subs or just using your bench in different ways or having different positions and changing the bonus points. And I'll always argue for those. And one day someone might listen.
Yeah, I think that the BPS can change and stuff like that. And I do think you've got a point about the chips. I've written about this previously, where I think we're in danger of becoming a little bit rigid, particularly at the end of the season. So I've got faith that I think next season the players, the prices, and the events of the season will put a twist on it, I think, and hopefully shake it up, and then we won't be so set in our ways towards the final few game weeks. Because I do think it did get a little bit stale towards the end, because we knew exactly where we were going, and we still made errors, and players like Mahrez and Vardy still surprised us. But I think we could do with a little bit of a shake up on that proven strategy going into the third year with the chips, and the free hit kind of added to it a little bit much. But anyway, we've spoken a lot tonight about our seasons and rounded up the Scoutcast with our favourite moments, our favourite players, and so on. We're now looking ahead. David, thank you for coming on your first Scoutcast. You'll be on many more next season, and hopefully we'll get some new faces on as well amongst the regular crew that you see here. It's been a great season, gentlemen. I'd like to thank you all for joining me over the course of the season, and we'll see. We might do one or two in the summer. You never know when the fixtures come out, when the game launches. We'll see what we're doing. But obviously we'll be back for the lead up to game week 1, and we'll see if we're going to have our summer off. I was probably going to play the World Cup game. It's a good night for me.
Good night for me.
Good night for me.
Good night.
Right.
Good night all.